Welcome to the Power of Pleasure podcast. I'm your host, L'Oreal, and I'm on a mission to help you embrace pleasure as a lifestyle. This show is a love letter to all the pleasure life has to offer. And each week, I'll be chatting with friends, loved ones, peers, and people I admire about all things pleasure. Through these conversations, I'm giving you the best tools, resources, and tips to help you create a life that is ooey gooey juicy good, one shift at a time. So buckle up and let's get ready for this week's episode. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, beautiful people. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Power of Pleasure podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking to the joy goddess herself. Please help me welcome to the show, Miss Mallory Kiersten.
Give me a round of applause. Excellent.
Yes, a round of applause. Absolutely. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing really good, and I'm glad that we finally got the chance to connect today. I'm looking forward to this discussion, and I know it's going to be good.
Yeah.
And so before we jump into this work and how you got started, could you introduce yourself and let the people know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, amazing. So I'm Mallory Kiersten. I go by the Joy Goddess because I think we could all do with a little more joy in our lives. Mm-hmm. And I'm a self-love coach. And that's just the basic umbrella term that I can use for all of the things that I do. And a big way that I sort of coach people on this path of self-love is through reclaiming their pleasure. I think we get so, from, conditioning when we're little itty bitty ones, work now, play later. I mean, we can just slowly but surely shut down our pleasure as life goes on. And I see way too much of that and just want to help people bring it back into their lives.
I love that. And I couldn't agree more. That is another reason why, I do the work that I do. And that's another reason why I start this podcast, because I want to show people that you can have pleasure in all aspects of your life. It's not just limited to sex and, the bedroom. Like your whole life can be pleasurable. And so I'm really interested in how you became a joy goddess and what, inspired you to do the work that you're doing. So is this something you always knew you wanted to do, or did it just find you?
So the Joy Goddess was actually a name given to me because I was under the illusion that nobody had trouble with joy, because every interaction I'm having with humans out there are joyful ones. And I had to have it explained to me and broken down by a friend of mine and my partner. It's like I was kind of double teamed at that time. And they said, no, they don't. You bring it out in them. And I was like, lies. You're just being nice. Like, what the? No. And that's actually how the Joy Goddess started. There was another coach at the time that I was in her field that called herself the Joy something or other. And I wanted to be out there as something totally different. And so that's how the Joy Goddess herself was born. And you asked if this was something that I had always wanted to do. If you're asking specifically about the Erotic Blueprints, that was an absolute, no, absolutely not. Even if you had asked me a few years ago before it was not even on my radar. And then my mentor at the time was putting out a program, Unstuck Your Sex, that I enjoyed working with my mentor. I had gone through a money course with her, and I loved all the work that we were doing together. And I reached out to her and I was just like, I don't even know why I want this, because I'm not going to talk about sex with you. Just FYI, not going to do it. I was really bratty about it. And she was like, well, you're welcome in the container. I enjoy working with you. You're welcome here. And just let me know. And so I was like, fine. And almost immediately, because I was so avoidant for talking specifically about sex, I started seeing immediately, oh, wow, here's how I can apply it to my life outside of the bedroom. And I started, it's actually a little bit of a backdoor pathway that I took, because most people come to Erotic Blueprints and they're like, I want a better sex life. I want to have sex more often with my partner. I want to last longer. I want better orgasms. Like, they come with those goals, and I didn't have any of that. So, and then usually through having better orgasms and lasting longer and having greater intimacy with their partner, they start expanding out into their life. And I was the opposite. I was like, oh, this is how it goes to life. Okay, now how can I apply it to the bedroom? So it was a little bit backwards for me, and I wouldn't have had it any other way.
I think that's really cool. And it's funny how we kind of, how can I say, I don't want to say trick ourselves into things, but we kind of frame things a certain way, and then it ends up being completely different from what we expected, but it's exactly what we needed at the time. And so what was that kind of light bulb moment for you where you're like, okay, this is good. I like this. I like this a lot. I think I really want to help other people with this.
Oh, yeah. So maybe this is a good time to actually introduce the framework a little bit. So there's a foundation for a little bit of what I'm talking about. So there are 5 erotic blueprints. So 5 unique paths to pleasure, and it's 5 blueprints. And within the 5 blueprints, it's going to show up absolutely differently for everybody. It's individualized by not just type, but by human. And so there's the energetic blueprint. Turn-ons are anticipation, tease, and spaciousness. The highest point of pleasure for a lot of energetics is in the almost touching, almost getting that kiss. It's in the almost, that anticipation piece. And, superpowers for this blueprint is that they can actually orgasm without even being touched. They can lock eyes with their lover across the room and just get into ecstatic or even altered states. The shadow is that because of that energetic sensitivity, they can actually shut down pretty quickly. And yeah, there's just a lot of sensitivity. Makes them really great and intuitive lovers because they can read the other. But if too much is happening too fast, it's like instant shutdown. Or they can lose their turn on if touch is happening too fast. So that's the energetic. The sensual blueprint is turned on by all of the senses. So they want delicious food. Maybe they have a beautiful environment with like flower petals all over the place, and they have their candles burning with specific scents that they love. And they bring kind of the beauty to sex. Superpowers of this is that orgasms are a multi-sensory experience. Okay, if you've had like really good food, and you're chewing it and it tastes so good and you swallow it and you just have that mouthgasm, like you might be a sensual.
That's me. That is me.
Yes, it is me too. It's a multi-sensory experience. It's a fully embodied, really just like all over experience is their orgasmic state. The shadow side of this is that, if they've spent a lot of time getting a beautiful environment together and then it's time to be intimate with a partner, they can get in their head. They can start running that to-do list, and then boop, like there goes their pleasure. And I just put all this effort into a beautiful space, and now there's socks and undies on the floor, and I can't stop thinking about the socks and undies on the floor. So, and then bye-bye goes the pleasure for them. So that's the sensual. The sexual blueprint is what we think of when we think of sex. Usually it's penetration, it's nudity, it's breasts and vulvas, and it's all of that. And the great part about this blueprint, superpower of this blueprint, is they don't actually need a highly erotic context to get turned on. Like, these are the people, like there's a lot of people out there. I believe the last percentage that I heard is that like 80% of the people out there don't actively think about having sex. Like they just don't. But that 20%, they're just like ready to go. 0 to 60. Let's go. doesn't take a whole lot of warm up. And the shadow side is that sexuals can be so goal focused that they lose the ability to feel the pleasure all along the journey. They get focused on the orgasm. Or like if orgasm doesn't happen, they can feel like, oh, I failed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the sexual. Then there's the kinky. And kinkies are turned on by what is taboo for you. So I think a lot of people hear the word kinky and they go, oh boy, because they automatically think that I'm talking about BDSM. And and kinky is inclusive of that, but it's not solely that. And the example that I use is that if you're used to having sex with the lights off all the time, having the lights on could be really kinky for you. Or trying a different position. If you've always done missionary and you're trying a different position, that could be really kinky for you. So it's whatever pushes those edges for you. That's something that I really like to dispel is that, a lot of clients come to me and they take the erotic blueprint quiz and they go, I don't understand why I'm testing high and kinky. And usually one of the questions I ask them is, well, was sex something that was talked about openly in your family? And they go, oh no, absolutely not. And it's like, there's the kinky. We're having this conversation that feels really taboo for you because it wasn't talked about openly. And that usually gets them, like the subject of sex is just taboo. Somebody listening to this right now could be having a really kinky experience that isn't being talked about so openly, right? And it's just, that's it. It's just what's taboo for you. Superpowers for this blueprint are endless creativity. There's like creating scenes, role play, that could be part of it, but it could also just be, it's just new ideas, it's novelty. And they're really great at that, bringing the novelty to sex. And the shadow or the disadvantage here is that sometimes kinkies can get caught in a rut. They find something that quote unquote works and they have to follow that pathway in order to be in pleasure. And depending on the kink or the desire, like there can be a lot of shame. I mean, shame goes into all of them in some way, shape, or form, but particularly with this one, like you may have been taught that the woman needs to be on the bottom all the time. And so wanting to try something different can feel really shamey. Yeah. So there's that. And the last one is the shapeshifter. So if you've been seeing yourself in all of these so far, you may be a shapeshifter. Because shapeshifters not only want all of the blueprints fed, they need it in order to feel fully satisfied. The amazing part about this blueprint is that because they're fluent in all the blueprints, they make really amazing lovers because they're able to meet everybody where they're at. Shadow side of that is that they can resort to people pleasing in the bedroom. So again, because of that fluency, if their partner's primarily sensual, they can meet them in sensual, but it sort of has the effect of you can like pizza, you can love pizza, even it could be your favorite food. But if you're having it every single day for every single meal, it's not that much fun. And I would imagine that wouldn't do such great things for your body, having pizza every day for all 3 meals. But it's that, and they themselves start feeling like they're starving because they're not getting fed in all of the ways. And so part of what I do is help people learn to feed themselves, so they're not outsourcing that pleasure to somebody else, because we can be fed in all the ways that we want to be fed. So I'm really surprising myself right now by remembering that your original question was, what was that light bulb moment for me that made me go, oh, I really want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the weirdest freaking light bulb moment ever. Because I had taken the quiz and it told me initially that sensual was my absolute lowest. I had zero access to it. I was like, I don't even know why anybody would want to be a sensual. That sounds awful.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this sort of epiphany. I started like, you can see in my environment, if you're listening, you can't see my environment, but like my environment is now full of plants. I have this beautiful background that I absolutely adore. And I'm sipping on some really nice warm coffee here and bringing the sensual into my everyday lived experience of being really present with what I'm eating, what my environment looks like, how I feel in my clothing. I started having all of these experiences and I was like, whoa, this is awesome. This changes everything while actually changing nothing. I mean, I did make some
Mm-hmm.
changes to my closet because I realized I was wearing stuff that I was like, this is itchy. Why do I even own it? So I
Mm-hmm.
did make some changes there, but in general, there was this shift in perspective where all of a sudden I'm noticing the colors of the sky, like all the different blues and hues, and I'm seeing colors more vibrantly, and I'm smelling flowers. Like I never really, like I could smell flowers, but I wasn't actually registering the scent of them, if that makes sense. So it's
Yeah,
like
I get
all
what
of
you're saying.
these, yeah. So all of these things opened up for me, and I had this moment of wow, in just these tiny shifts, my whole life completely changed. And another aha that kind of like solidified it was understanding my energetic blueprint and that need for spaciousness. I did the weirdest thing that freaks people out when I tell people that I did it, and I deleted everything off of my schedule. Like typical time management tells us if you want to get something done, you need to put it in your schedule and you've got to schedule it and you've got to estimate the time that you're going to do it in, and you plug it in if you want to get it done. So I was doing that and I was scheduling myself literally to the 5-minute increment and wondering why I
Wow.
was so stressed all the time. That might work for a sexual blueprint, like get stuff done, get to the goal. Like that would be probably work very well for someone who's more of a sexual blueprint. But for an energetic, I was feeling constricted, I was freezing all the time, and I was like, what is going on? So if it wasn't an appointment or I had to be somewhere, or I was meeting someone online like this, bye-bye. And there's all this white space in my calendar. And
Mm-hmm.
the breath that I felt in my body over that, just life-changing. Just life-changing. And
I
it's the
love
silliest
that.
thing.
Yeah,
Like,
and I don't even think that's weird. I didn't think that was weird at all because I did something similar.
yeah.
Um, I just got to a point where I was overwhelmed with it. And it was really weird for me because I had actually created this time management mini course. And like we're talking about time blocking and prioritization and all that stuff. And at the time, it made sense for me, but I eventually got to a point where I was over it. And so looking at my calendar now, the only thing I have on there are like reminders for bill due dates and then important appointments and like interviews. That's it. I don't have anything else on there. And it feels so much better. So I didn't think that was weird at all.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, I think a lot of people really could benefit from just kind of taking a step back from the constant planning. One thing that I learned, and this was like some years ago, I felt really like restricted because I was planning so much. And the coach that I had at the time, she asked me, she said, have you ever considered that you might be planning yourself out of a miracle? And I
Ooh.
was like, no. like, no. And I was offended. Like, why would you say that? But I get it now, because scheduling all of my time, I didn't really leave anything open for anything else. And then a lot of that time was for other people and other things. It wasn't even things for me. So all that said to say, I don't think it's weird. And I applaud you for being able to do that because a lot of people can't,
Yeah.
But anywho, so I appreciate you sharing that with me. And I find it really interesting the way that those perspective shifts happen. And you talked about outsourcing your pleasure. What are some ways that you find when you're working with clients that they are outsourcing their pleasure or outsourcing their joy? And how can they not do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of a similar thought process that, a lot of us can get into. I'll be happy when I lose this weight, or I finish my degree, or, my child gets out of these terrible twos, or, like there's all these things that we place importance on to being joyful or being happy or whatever it is that you desire to be. I desire to be in joy and pleasure like every second of every day. And, it's important to remember that it's an inside job. And I feel like those types of quotes get sent around the internet all the time and people go, yeah, but then they go to doing to the same thing. Like, and I think, when it comes to being in a partnership or when it comes to pleasure, we can, because this is what we see in the movies all the time, where the eyes meet across the room and they just know what each other needs and they don't need to have any consent conversations. And so they just go do it. And it's amazing and awesome just because it was meant to be. And that's, well, like, that's just not how it works. You can feel that spark of attraction across the room, but if you don't know your own body and you don't know how to play your own instrument, like, you can't really expect somebody else to know. Do you ever watch Schitt's Creek ever?
I love that show. I've watched it 3 times.
Oh my God. Okay. So the scene where Moira is like trying to get David to make something and I forget. And she's like reading the recipe and she's like, she just got to fold the cheese. And he's like, what even is that? What is that? You just fold it, David. You just fold the cheese. Like, and that's what the mother-son sort of scenario, but it's the same concept of like, what do you mean by that? I have no idea what you're saying. I would like to help you here, but if you can't ask for your desire, like, if we can't ask for our desires, we definitely won't receive it. And I think we can also get to this place where it's like we're afraid to ask because we're afraid we won't receive it. But then if we don't ever ask, we definitely won't. And but all of that starts with a knowing of you, with a deep intimacy with yourself. So that when it comes time to play with a partner, well, first off, it's so that you are already full and there's none of that like hooks that we can get into other people to try to like siphon from them almost.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're filling yourself up so much and it feels so good. And then you're in this place of like, wow, I'm really good by myself. But maybe I want to see what it would be like to invite somebody else in, to invite my partner in, to maybe get out in the dating world and invite somebody else into this. Because then also what happens, or what I've seen happen, is if it's anything less than this, what I've been giving for myself,
yes,
there's zero tolerance for that.
Yes.
Which that's what I'm about.
Yes.
That's what I'm
Yes.
about.
I love that so much. Like, I have been talking to my daughter, who, as of right now, my oldest daughter has no interest in other people, which I think is great for her, being like 14, because the relationships are starting younger and younger these days. Why,
Yeah.
I don't know. But she has no interest in dealing with anyone but herself. And I love that for her. And I affirm her all the time, because there's this pressure to, I mean, you're already 14, like you don't have a boyfriend, you don't have a girlfriend. And she's like, I think people are stupid. Um,
Because most people are when they're 14.
yeah, I think people are stupid. I think boys are gross. They smell, they look dirty all the time. She was like, the girls at her school, they're all like copycats. They all do the same things. They talk the same way. And I'm just like, wow, like I'm raising this person. I think it's great. Um, that she's really focused on herself, and she's not allowing other people to like influence what she does. And unfortunately, a lot of us were not brought up that way. A lot of us were brought up, you know, having our autonomy stripped away, and we were raised to put other people before ourselves. And whereas, adults in our generation are now learning to put themselves first, there's like this whole other generation behind us, and behind them, watching what we're doing, and not wanting to fall into the things that we fell into. Um and and I affirm her, and I try to affirm as many of her friends as possible, to like just focus on yourself. And this doesn't mean that you'll never have someone, but that should absolutely not be the goal, especially while you're in high school. You have your whole life, but it's easier for you to create a life that you love when you're not focused on other people.
Yes.
It's easier for you to be able to be happy when you're not focused on other people, because you're making decisions based off what feels good for you and what's right for you, without having to consider anybody else. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think
Um,
that's the hardest part for a lot of the people that I see, because it's like we have certain kind of systems and structures in place that, at some level in school, there's the thing that you have to do to get an A.
mm-hmm.
So at some level, it's like you're giving the teacher what they want so that you can get an A.
Yes.
And that can be so, embedded. And what I am noticing, and correct me if I'm wrong since you do have a younger one, I am
Mm-hmm.
noticing a bigger shift to less academically achievement oriented mindsets as of late,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
which is amazing because I grew up with, you know, my how I earned love was through those achievements, and that
Yes.
has
Yes.
been ugh, to unravel.
Mm-hmm.
Like that
Mm-hmm.
has been big to unravel, and you know that's the change that I want to make. Is like exactly what
Yes.
you're talking about. Is stop living for other people, and not from a non-compassionate place. We can be compassionate and we can be loving and we can be there for others. And it doesn't have to take over our whole life.
Yes. I'm absolutely noticing that shift, which is great. I will say that I feel like, just personally, there are some life skills missing. Like, there's some skills that we grew up learning, learning how to cope with, disappointment, learning
Yeah.
how to cope with screwing up. We learned how to cope with those things, and I'm not seeing as much of that now. Like, the mistakes, when the kids now make a mistake, it's like, oh my God. And so there's that. But within that, there's so much freedom there. And I think it's so beautiful, and it's absolutely a gift. I'm sure they may not see it that way, but I'm definitely looking at it like, oh my God. Like, if I could be your age with what I know now, oof, Like I would just be, I would be
Unstoppable force.
unstoppable. Yes, I
Ah,
would be absolutely unstoppable. No doubt about it. But for the people who are watching or the people who are listening who want to get to that point where they feel unstoppable now, what are some simple tips that they can do, some things that they can incorporate into their day for them to prioritize their own joy and their own pleasure?
yeah. Um, so I think I talked a little bit about work hard, play later,
Mm-hmm.
which works relatively well when you're a child and, you know, parents or whoever you were raised by are wanting you to make sure that your homework is done before you lose the night playing video games or
Mm-hmm.
whatever your activity of choice is, whatever your interest was after. But when we reach adulthood, unless you're doing the laundry naked, the laundry is never done completely. There's always dishes to do. Like when
Mm-hmm.
you reach adulthood, there's certain things that happen that it's like if you don't make the time for pleasure, like if you don't prioritize that, it won't happen. And you're giving yourself the scraps, which usually lands us in some sort of cycle where we're replenishing just enough. We're filling up the cup just enough to go do it again the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And in the erotic blueprint community, we talk about pleasure first. It's not work now, play later. It is pleasure first. And for me, it's something as simple as waking up in my bed and just like really snuggling in the covers. That sometimes is my pleasure first. Like really dropping
Mm-hmm.
myself in the moment instead of jumping right out of bed and I got to go do XYZ or, but like taking that moment first thing, pleasure first. And it's not, okay, I got to hurry up and fix breakfast. It's, can I feel my hand? Can I be present, so present in this moment and feel my hand on the refrigerator door? Can I hear the magnet separating itself as I'm opening the door? Like, and this doesn't take very long. It's just being really present with what is happening now. And that has the added benefit of rewiring our brain to not be in so much fight flight. It rewires our
Mm-hmm.
brain for presence because when we're present, we're signaling safety. And the more safety we feel, the more pleasure we can feel. And the more pleasure that we let in, the safer we feel, and the more pleasure we can let in, and the safer we feel, and the more pleasure we can let in. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And it can really be as simple as just getting present. Like,
I love
that's the
that.
big one.
Mm-hmm. Taking time to just be in your body, and not allow your brain, like your mind, to rule your whole day.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to, like, even if you wake up with an alarm, it's okay for you to, turn the alarm off and just take a second, you know. Open your eyes if you feel like you're going to go back to sleep and if you have somewhere to be,
Yeah.
but it's okay to just take a second and just be where you are instead
And
of like immediately jumping into go mode.
mhm. And even if you wanted to sleep longer, even if you're feeling grouchy in the moment because my alarm just woke me up, can you also be grateful for the alarm? Thank you, alarm.
Yeah.
Thank
Hmm.
you for doing your job so that I can get my day going. Gratitude is a big one too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So we have being present, being in your body, gratitude, and what's like one more? Maybe we can call it like the big three.
The big three. So many. So many.
So many.
Some of, like something that has made the biggest shift for me and that I see in others making the big shift is actually getting really clear on our values and priorities and
Mm-hmm.
living by them, because I feel like when it comes to values and priorities, that's where we can kind of lie to ourselves the most. We don't mean
Mm-hmm.
to, but we do it. And we can say, I mean, personally, I think number one priority for everybody, yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
But, you know, I think we can say I prioritize my family. I'm a family man, or I'm a family person. And but then, you know, we've missed our child's, you know, school plays and recitals and stuff. We've missed the last 3 of those because we were working. And even if we're not conscious of it, like that doesn't feel good when we're not living aligned with our values and our priorities.
Mm-hmm.
So being really clear on that, getting really clear on, am I actually living them? And start focusing on making those shifts to bring things more into alignment. I mean, if you're in a 9 to 5, or if you're in a job that sometimes requires overtime, it makes sense that you might miss a thing or two.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's a continuous pattern, are you living your priorities? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a big one. And I'm glad that you touched on that, because I just want to say that it really does make a difference, because that's something that I did recently. Took some time off work, and I was able to go to my youngest daughter's like award ceremony where they give out like honor roll and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And I had missed so many. I had missed so many of those awards, like even from like the year before. And I cried the entire time. But I was so happy. I thought I was going to explode. I cried the whole time. Well, not the whole time. Once she saw that I was there, and I'm getting emotional now, but like just the look on her face and just I was like, I'm here. Like that just instant. Like I
Oh,
thought I was going to explode. I was so happy. Just that look on her face, and it makes all the difference. And I kept thinking to myself, like, if I hadn't prioritized what I needed, I wouldn't have been able to have that moment. And so it really does make all the difference. It's not necessarily easy, you know, because it's kind of like, oh my goodness, I have moments where I'm like, I hope that they're not just fucking everything up. So like it's just gonna be a disaster when I get back to work. But it doesn't even matter, because I'll deal with it when the time comes. But I'm gonna be present. I'm gonna enjoy these moments because they matter the most.
yeah.
Yeah.
The
So
mess will always be there for you later.
absolutely. The
Yeah.
mess will always be there. Always. It's not going anywhere. Um, and so I feel like that's a good segue into like the next question that I want to ask you. If there's like one maybe like mindset change or like perspective change
Mm.
that you wish everyone could make so that they could have a more pleasurable life, what would that be?
Mm. Um, yeah, getting curious. My favorite game to
Mm,
play right now is there pleasure even here?
mm,
Um, it's been a rough month in my personal life. Um, my mom had a surgery. She's in California. I'm in Colorado. I was trying to manage all the details and stuff. We have
mm,
so much family
mhm,
over there. So many people were like stepping up to, you know, be with her and all that kind of stuff. And I was just kind of um, manning headquarters from
mhm, mhm,
Colorado while all of that was going on. And, you know, there was just a lot of emotions. You know, I think it was Ram Dass who said, if you think you're enlightened, spend a week with your family and spend a week with the people that you're likely doing all your healing from. Yeah, that's a super fun game. But in the midst of all of these emotions that were rising, all of this anger, oh, I had this amazing moment where I was like so angry and I was crying these hot, hot tears down my face. And I had this moment of, oh, I can feel this heat. And now I can feel
mhm,
the temperature change of my face as my face is getting hot with the release. And now it feels cool. And oh my gosh, that tear feels so good on my face. Is there
mhm,
pleasure even here? Because the answer most of the time is yes.
mhm, mhm.
It's a really great game to play. I urge everybody to
Mhm.
try it.
Yeah, it is. And there's something so powerful in the leaning in of it all. When you just let yourself have the thing, when you let yourself feel it,
Mhm.
there's something so powerful in that. And we've been taught to fear it, but there's really not that I can think of. I mean, you may have an idea, but I can't think of anything to fear about leaning in and just letting yourself have the moments that you need to have and feel the things that you need to feel.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because how
Okay.
good does that release feel at the end too? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. And so I'm guessing from everything that we've discussed so far that it's really important for you to be in touch with yourself and like love yourself enough to even begin the journey of having a more pleasurable life. And so with that said, what is the biggest key that you think self-love plays on its influence in our relationships with other people?
Mm. Biggest influence self-love has on our relationship with other people. That's what you're asking?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. 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 Mm. I think when it comes to relating to other people, I'm not actually 100% a believer that you have to love yourself first before you can love anybody else. I
Mm-hmm.
actually think how we love others informs how we get to love ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, when we learn to love ourselves, which starts with just accepting what is, we're
Mm-hmm.
just being with what is, not trying to fix or change anything. We're accepting what is right now.
Yeah.
And the deepest love can come from that acceptance. And when it comes to relating with others, it's being able to love without hooks. We're not putting
Mm-hmm.
hooks in the other people to validate our existence because we're doing that for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we can love and we can connect and we can reach out. And ultimately, we have this beautiful gift of just being here, being intimate
Mm-hmm.
with ourselves, being in love with ourselves, like taking yourself on a little date. What might that look like? And and
Mm-hmm.
and courting yourself as you would with a lover. And then when it's time to engage other people, or when you're thinking like, oh, I might want to invite this person into my sphere, it just gets to be that much better.
Mm-hmm.
It enhances everything when it begins here with us, ourselves.
I love that. And what you said, I feel like was spot on because when I hear that, if you can't love, like if you don't love yourself, if you can't love yourself, how can you love someone else? And I think it's not so much about how much you love yourself, but it's definitely more about the acceptance, because I look at like just loving other people, loving myself, and relating to other people about acceptance and about the connection, not necessarily ownership. Like sometimes I feel like phrases like that are more on like ownership. Like if I love myself first, then I won't feel the need to own this other person. But I feel like the work is like deeper than that. It's beyond that. And so I appreciate you touching on that. And so I want to keep talking, but we're getting down to like the wire, and I absolutely want to be respectful of your time. And so I'm going to shift us into like the portion of the show called the pleasure principle. And I have these two questions that I ask every single guest that comes on the show. Okay.
Okay.
So the first question is, what is your non-negotiable pleasure principle?
Mm, pleasure principle. Like a guide for how I live kind of thing.
It can be whatever you want it to be. I always leave it open to the guest interpretation.
Ooh, my energetic is so happy about all this openness. um, oh, non-negotiable pleasure principle. I think it comes down to that curiosity of, is there pleasure even here? Or
Mm-hmm.
even, how can I add more pleasure into this moment right now?
Mm-hmm. I
I
like
love
that.
these questions to ask myself every day.
But I think it's great how you've incorporated that into your daily practice. It's not, sometimes, and I can't speak for your experience, but sometimes, like, as someone who is on a journey of like self-discovery, self-love, and just want to take better care of yourself and be happier overall, a lot of the things that we start out doing, it can be like performative, right? Like for me, I was in a place where I felt like where I was as far as I could go. It was as good as it was going to get. And I kind of had to start tricking myself. I would literally play tricks on myself. Like I went to a restaurant and I would look at the menu and go, I think this is going to be disgusting. And I'd order the food just to see how bad it was. And then it's like, okay, this wasn't bad at all. And so I gave myself like challenges, or I'd go see a movie like, I think this movie's gonna suck, and just let myself be open to it. And it never really was that. It never really was that. And eventually I didn't have to play the tricks anymore. Like I didn't have to play the tricks anymore. And so like the curiosity and the, how can I have more pleasure in this moment? I think it's really beautiful and it's really interesting, and it eventually just becomes a part of who you are, even if you don't phrase it exactly that way. Like for people watching and listening, even if those aren't your words, it becomes, I don't want to say habit, but it becomes just a part of who you are. You don't have to like push it or force it anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the next question that I want to ask you is, what does pleasure feel like for you?
Ooh. Oh, ooh. Oh, it feels like so many things. A body sensation that I get a lot is like full body. I call them full body giggles because that's actually what it feels like, is that every part of my body is giggling. But it can feel like this groundedness and solidness, like right in my pussy area. It can also feel like this beautiful lightness in my chest. It can also feel like coffee sliding down my throat. It can also feel like curiosity, and it feels alive, and it feels joyful, and it can sometimes feel peaceful, and it can sometimes feel angry, and it can sometimes feel deep, deep grief, and it can sometimes feel this and this and this and this, because pleasure is everywhere. We are pleasure.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that perspective. And for those of you who can't see, like the full body giggles are real, because I've been able to see them, and it looks like being on the receiving end of a tight hug, right? Like that's what it looks like. Like that's what I'm seeing, because you do this, and it's and so that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me and just share your experience with and your energy with me and the audience today. It really means a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It was beautiful, beautiful meeting you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Thank you. And so I absolutely know that there are going to be some people who are interested in, learning more about you, learning more about the work that you do with the Erotic Blueprint framework. And so how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my website is MalloryKiersten.com. That'll have everything that you need to get started in one way, shape, or form with me. And you can follow me on Facebook or friend me on Facebook, and that's Mallory.Kiersten.888 there. And I'm the Joy Goddess on Instagram and TikTok.
Alrighty, you heard it here first. I'm joking, but thank you. Thanks so much again. I really appreciate you. I'll make sure to have all that information in the show notes. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, whatever you're about to get into.
Thank you so much. You too.
Thank you for joining me on this week's episode of the Power of Pleasure podcast. Make sure to check the website, powerofpleasurepodcast.substack.com. On the site, not only will you find some blog posts and other helpful tools to help you continue the mission, you'll also be able to access the show notes as well as any social links and resources from this week's guest. While you're at it, if you found this information valuable, which I'm sure you did in some way, go ahead and take a few moments to leave a rating or review wherever you're listening to this episode and share out on social. I hope to see you next week for another episode of the show. And in the meantime, in between time, go out and do one thing today to help you embrace pleasure as a lifestyle.